Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Infinity, and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course, the law of attraction. It's been a while since I've done a podcast video, but I guess I've been feeling that inspiration from the upgrade of the recent full moon that I spoke on in a recent reading video. And I know that many of you are feeling that and relate to that as well. And I just felt really inspired to come on and share about a topic that has been coming up a lot in recent collective reading videos here on the channel. So because it's been coming up so frequently, I feel it's been on the minds and hearts of many of you who are listening, or at least those of you who will be drawn to this video. So I did want to speak more on it and really give it its own space here through this podcast video. So today we're going to be talking about soul ties or soul cords, and the difference between what we are calling a soul tie or a soul cord and what we think of as a soulmate or even a twin flame connection. But before I get into that, I do want to share with you, if you are new to the channel, then welcome. Thank you for tuning in today. I mainly do collective reading videos here on the channel, but in the beginnings, when I first started this channel years ago, I actually started off doing podcast videos about different subjects like what I say in my intro: life, love, spirituality, and the law of attraction. So I've really been feeling some inspiration to go back to those roots. And of course, I love doing the reading videos, but I want to sprinkle in some more topic-focused podcast videos in between all of that as well. So if you are feeling a resonance with the energy here, then of course I invite you to subscribe to the channel, join our beautiful community of like-minded, conscious, creative beings here on YouTube. Okay, so I want to start off this video by talking about what we're calling here a soul tie or a soul cord. Now, let me preface by saying that physical language always becomes a little clunky when it comes to describing really high-level spiritual or energetic dynamics. Physical language is limited. The soul, the spirit energy is unlimited. So naturally, there's always restrictions and sometimes confusion when we start trying to use physical words to describe experiences that are deeply personal, spiritual, and energetic. So bear with me as I attempt to do that here in this video, but also I'm saying that because people use different words to describe sometimes the same thing energetically. So use whatever terms resonate with you the most, of course, but for the purposes of this specific video, I wanted to be clear that I am using the term soul tie and the term soul cord interchangeably to describe the dynamic where we, throughout this lifetime, through our interactions, conversations, through thinking or feeling things very strongly about another person, physically or vice versa, through feeding that energy back and forth to one another, there is this energetic bond being created between our souls subconsciously that we can then utilize to really be in touch with them almost all the time, to be telepathically kind of bonded in a sense. in the subconscious, in the quantum realm. And again, this, what I'm calling here a soul tie or a soul bond, is something that technically speaking, we have the ability to create with anyone. We can create a soul bond or a soul tie to some degree with any person simply through those interactions, especially things like physical touch combined with very strong emotion that is mutual, will almost definitely create some kind of soul tie. Now, not all soul ties are necessarily what we would consider to be negative or detrimental. Again, a soul tie in the pure definition that I am personally using here, or a soul cord, is simply when we have bonded with someone energetically, so we are feeding each other subconsciously and energetically. And in fact, all community at its core is based on these soul ties and can be really helpful and beneficial, because healthy soul ties can create this kind of like a safety net of sorts to help uplift us when we're feeling low, to boost our sense of self-worth and self-confidence when we have many people in our lives that we have healthy soul ties with, that we're very bonded to in this physical world. This can cause us to feel a sense of belonging, again, to feel a stronger sense of positive identity, and to feel really supported along our journey. Equally, having a healthy soul tie with a person that we also have a deeper soul connection with, which I'm going to get into in a second. This can be, again, it can be very healthy as well, because when we have these positive energetic dynamics of thinking and feeling strongly, consciously about each other, and it kind of feeds in a loop, this can really promote a lot of positive energy in our lives, a sense of connectedness. And that is, of course, so essential to our human experience. However, the reason that many people associate soul ties or soul cords with unhealthful dynamics is because they can become unhealthy. And just like with anything, as humans, we tend to notice the negatives and the unhealthy aspects more than we tend to focus on or appreciate the positives, simply because of our evolutionary programming. So whereas we might not necessarily notice all of the positive soul ties we have in our lives that are just natural to us, that are giving us a sense of community, that support us subconsciously, when one of those soul ties turns sour or becomes very negative, it can affect us in detrimental ways, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Although, of course, I am not a doctor or medical professional, so always speak with a medical professional about anything physical going on. But these negative, I'm going to label them as, soul ties can be almost like weeds in a garden that can cause us to feel very overrun, overwhelmed, and drained. This is because imagine that you have this bond. I'm sure many of you don't have to imagine, because you've experienced this in your own life, most likely, even if you haven't used this label to describe the experience. Imagine you have this bond with someone where, in a sense, you are constantly telepathically communicating subconsciously, but now imagine that the other person is utilizing that bond to negatively think or speak about you, and that is just being received by you so openly, so easily, subconsciously. Imagine how unsupported that would make you feel, how drained that could make you feel. Equally, imagine that you begin to feel or sense subconsciously that a person you're deeply connected to is pulling away, is maybe thinking less of you, pulling back from you, not interested in connecting with you, yet there's this open bond between you energetically. This can very easily lead to obsessive thoughts and thinking, because you can almost feel as though you're going crazy when you have this soul cord or soul tie with someone where you can sense them all the time subconsciously, but in your physical reality, they are acting very opposite or acting very cold or distant. This can be so painful as a soul and very confusing even to your body and to your conscious mind. So again, there are many ways that a soul tie can become detrimental or unhealthy. And really, for the purposes of this video, it doesn't matter so much about specifically identifying how it's unhealthy or how it became unhealthy. Regardless, if you start to feel as though a bond with a certain person is becoming a bit unbalanced or is affecting you in some kind of a detrimental way, then most likely there is the need to address and release that soul tie. Now, of course, this leads us into the conversation of that underlying soul bond that we do have with many other souls who are part of our soul family that we call a soulmate, and then that closest soul bond that we call a twin flame. Now, there could be videos and videos made about the soulmate and the twin flame dynamic. And in fact, if many of you have been watching my channel for a while, then you know that I've created many videos about twin flames and soulmates. So you can explore those as well. But essentially, for the purposes, again, of definition in this video, a soulmate is someone who shares a similar core soul frequency to your own. So we're talking about a pure underlying soul connection beneath any potential soul cords or soul ties, which again are in a sense artificially created through your energy interaction with that person in this specific lifetime and can be created with anyone. Now, for the purposes of this video, that soul tie or that soul cord is something that we can have with a soulmate, but it's overlaying that connection. It's kind of on top of it in a sense. So a healthy soul cord or soul tie that is forged with a soulmate, someone you already have that pure underlying connection with, can serve to strengthen the connection, to give you a stronger sense of bondedness with that person. It can be such a beautiful thing to have a strong soul tie with someone that you also have that underlying soul connection with. Or again, the twin flame connection, which a twin flame is just a soul that shares an identical core soul frequency to your own, whereas a soulmate carries a similar frequency, but there are differences to some degree. So it's more like two harmonizing notes as opposed to two notes that are played at exactly the same frequency. So with a soulmate or a twin flame, these forms of pure underlying soul connection, you can create soul cords on top of them through physically meeting, interacting, thinking heavily about each other, feeling heavily about each other. But the thing is, these soul ties that we can create with a soulmate or with a twin flame can become unhealthy just like any other soul tie. So it's possible to have a connection with a soulmate who, because of free will and circumstances in the physical world, maybe things just got out of sorts physically. Maybe there were arguments or disagreements, etc., outside influences. These types of things can create unhealthy soul ties where, just like I described previously, even with a soulmate or a twin flame, we can have these soul tie dynamics of intensely or obsessively thinking about them. We can feel negatively towards them or vice versa. We can feel a kind of heaviness around these people or situations. And the thing about these unhealthy soul ties with soulmates and twin flames is that they kind of work in both extremes. When we have a healthy soul tie with a soulmate and a twin flame or a twin flame, everything can be amplified to the positive, where we can feel exponentially more supported, more loved than usual. But equally, they can be amplified to the negative because there is already that underlying very intense, like oftentimes beautiful, but in this case, becoming detrimental soul bond. Okay, so The way to identify a soul cord or a soul tie is really very simple. If you can tap into that deeper place within yourself through meditation, through going out into nature, whatever you do to really get clear, to get connected to your internal self, because when something is detrimental to you, you are already aware of it and can identify it intuitively. In fact, if you landed on this video, it's very likely you have someone in your life that you've already subconsciously identified as kind of creating this dissonance in your life or in your energetic field that you've already identified could be bringing this toxic dynamic or this heaviness into your life. And so more than likely, your intuition has already been telling you that a soul tie with that person has become unhealthy. But very often, the interesting thing about soul ties is we can sometimes even feel them in our own energetic body through one of our chakra centers. So if you do close your eyes, focus on your breathing, meditate, get into that deep meditative state that many of you already practice and are familiar with. And then imagine the image of that person and scan your physical body and see if you feel a little bit of heaviness or pulling anywhere in your body. With practice, you can actually become adept at identifying almost exactly where that soul tie is connecting with you in your chakra center. And so with that soul tie identified, I also want to share with you a personal technique that I use to release unhealthy soul cords or soul ties, and a tool that you can use to really facilitate this process as well. But I also want to answer, before we get into that, really one of the strongest questions that comes up when we talk about releasing soul ties. There is this fear that gets triggered that we are going to lose the person or lose the connection altogether if we do a soul tie releasing, or some people call it cord cutting, but the reason that I'm not using that here is because it sounds so harsh and so intense and almost as though you're cutting that person off, like you're hurting them in some way, when really, if a soul tie becomes unhealthy, it's not beneficial to either of you. So releasing it is really the kindest and most compassionate thing you can do, not only for your own soul, but for theirs. But also addressing this fear, it really can be addressed with that super cliche saying around, if you let something go and it comes back to you, it's yours. And the reason that this cliche works here is because, like I said previously, if you have a soulmate or a twin flame connection with someone, that is a pure, unbreakable, underlying bond between your souls that will carry forth through lifetime after lifetime. It's not like you can cut a soulmate connection or cut a twin flame connection. So if you are releasing the soul cord or the soul tie that's become unhealthy, all you are doing is freeing yourself and the other person from any unhealthy or unhelpful aspects of your connection. And just like pruning a garden, you're actually creating the space for that underlying connection to flourish and to grow and to thrive, which wouldn't be possible unless you release or pull out the aspects of that connection that have become detrimental, just like in the garden metaphor. So if anything, doing this kind of a ritual on a connection that does have that pure, deeper soul potential will, over the course of time, and again, it might take time because you might feel a bit disconnected from the person instantaneously, but over the course of time, you will notice that those opportunities arise for a more beautiful, harmonious connection with that individual, absent of those more negative energetic dynamics Okay, so with that being said, I want to share with you the procedure, so to speak, that you can use to release an unhealthy soul tie or soul cord. And essentially what you do is follow that meditation practice I shared earlier, where you can utilize that to identify where this cord is connecting to you. And with your eyes still closed, I want you to literally envision that person and imagine there is an actual physical cord that is attaching to that part of your chakra system. You can even physically, with your eyes still closed, reach out and imagine you are grabbing a hold of that cord, turning it to unlatch it from your energy body, and then pulling it out to release it. As you do this, you can then tie up the end of that cord, again, either in your imagination or you can physically do the movements. Move it to the furthest extent of your aura by outstretching your arm and then gently release it. You can then breathe healing, loving energy into that part of your own being where that soul cord was released. And doing this should immediately cause you to feel a bit of relief, to feel a bit of clarity. And you may notice over time that your connection alters with that specific person, that yes, temporarily you might feel a bit more disconnected from them because you were both utilizing that unhealthy soul tie to stay in this telepathic, stronger communication. But again, if there is that underlying pure soul bond over the course of time, this will actually facilitate thriving in your connection. It will open up new, more harmonious ways for the two of you to connect healthfully. Now, I also want to share with you a tool that I have just created to assist you with this process whenever you're feeling an unhealthy soul tie. And I've just created and released a brand new subliminal meditation, and I am calling this soul tie releasing. Now, for those of you who are new to the idea of subliminals, they are meditation tracks that contain unconscious affirmations, meaning your conscious mind can't fully hear the affirmations, but that allows them to bypass the conscious mind and make deeper, more lasting impressions on the subconscious mind, which really it's the subconscious that is the powerhouse, the driver of all of our thoughts and action in life, because it controls 95% of our thoughts. So using subliminals to access and reprogram your own subconscious mind is like a fast track to magnetizing your energetic field for your desires in life. Personally, I started seeing such profound results when I started using subliminals about 5 or 6 years ago now. And because I became so passionate about using them in my own life, I have now created an app for my subliminals called Sound and Soulful. It is such a passion project for me. I personally still use the app every single day to manifest in my own life, and I know that many of you are using it and loving it as well. So I've added this subliminal to the app for soul tie releasing. And the beautiful thing about this subliminal is that it's designed to only release and uproot the unhealthful parts of a soul tie, of a soul cord, which allows you to leave the underlying soul connection, if there is one, to maintain its purer form and to express more of that absent of those unhealthy ties and connections. So this is going to be a really powerful one for assisting you through this soul tie releasing process. You can even listen to it while you are meditating and visualizing that whole technique that I've just shared with you. And if you haven't yet downloaded my app, you can do so by clicking the link in the pinned comment and description box underneath this video. That is a direct link that will take you to the app in the App Store, where you can download it and sign up for a 7-day free trial account to try out all of my subliminals completely free. So I really hope this video was helpful and beneficial for you. I know that it's been a while since I've done a video like this, so I would love to hear how you liked it, as well as what podcast kinds of videos or topics you want me to speak on in the future. So you can leave all those suggestions below. Of course, if you do like this style of content and you want to hear more, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Magnetize Yourself, where I post more energy updates, inspiration, and information. Of course, if you do want to download and try out my subliminals to reprogram your subconscious mind and manifest your desires, the link to that is underneath the video. Otherwise, I am sending you all so much love today. Have a beautiful remainder of your day and week, and I will connect with you here again in the next video.